On tonight's edition of The Best Times, you'll see how the boomer generation is thinking outside the box when planning their funerals. You'll meet a former NFL star who traded his cleats for the classroom, and you'll get important information to help you protect your hearing. Funding for The Best Times is provided by... Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations, with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. The baby boomers have made their mark on every aspect of American life, so it isn't surprising to find that there is no exception when it comes to death. The boomer generation has always been one to buck tradition and look for alternatives, and the last act of their lives is turning out to be no different. Boomers are choosing to leave this world by employing creative alternatives to their funerals, webcasting the services, customizing the caskets, choosing cremation, and exploring other options such as green burial. It's a generation that is definitely thinking outside the box. When I say the word funeral, this is probably one of the images that pops into your head. A flower-draped metal casket, awaiting mourners, and internment in the grave. But increasingly, this image of the traditional funeral is being replaced, as boomers begin to demand an array of options from the funeral industry.
The boomer generation is not as traditional as the generation before. The generation before was pretty solid with casket, vault, embalming, visitation, you know, the whole 9 yards. And the boomer generation is definitely open to with cremation, with whole body donation.
They're wanting options, and they're not settling for just the Amazing Grace old rugged cross in the garden.
The first area where boomers are impacting the funeral industry is cost. The National Funeral Directors Association reports the average cost of a funeral with a casket and vault, but not including cemetery plot and monument, is nearly $8,000. Boomers are consumers, and they're ready to comparison shop before buying.
I think for a period of time, people thought that all funeral directors were the same, all costs were the same, so it didn't matter who you chose, but it does, and there is a wide variance in cost.
You can buy everything online these days. Why not a funeral?
With the internet, we're seeing more where you can compare different funeral homes, compare prices.
Technology is changing the industry in other ways. Memorial Park is installing cameras in their chapels to enable webcasting of funeral services so that family and friends who can't be present can still attend online.
We are seeing where families will FaceTime or they will also Skype the funeral service.
And the funeral services themselves are changing.
The phrase traditional funeral nowadays, it's almost unheard of nowadays.
Everybody wants something unique now, and I think that is really being brought on by the baby boomer generation, and that, as we all know, that generation has worked to break the mold in almost every regard.
We see people especially bringing in memorabilia to services to personalize you know, what their loved one was about in life, what they cherished, what they valued. We'll have like music for the visitation, or different ways to personalize it, for like balloon releases or dove releases. Different ways just to not have just the cut and dry traditional funeral, to make it more, oh, that's so mom, or that's so dad.
Personalization doesn't stop with music and memorabilia. If you're a sportsman or an outdoorsman, you can choose this hunter's casket with elk horn handles and a camouflage interior. And for the biker or motorhead, how about this diamond plate casket? You can even choose a Harley-Davidson hearse for the trip to the gravesite. Jason Dixon tells the story of a mother looking for an urn for her deceased son, who was a weightlifter.
I said, what about, have you ever thought about getting a dumbbell, if I could find a dumbbell, and I could put his ashes in a dumbbell? And she said, sure, let me look around the home, see if I have one of his. She couldn't find one, but I went to a couple of stores, took pictures and sent them to her, and we ended up taking this dumbbell to a sheet metal place, and he hollowed the dumbbell out, and we placed his ashes inside the dumbbell and used that as his urn.
Boomers are driving other trends in the industry, none more so than cremation. Just over 20 years ago, the national cremation rate was less than 20%. Today, it has more than doubled.
And I think you'll see in Memphis somewhere around a 35%. Nationwide, we're setting apparently near 40 and well on our way to 60.
Cost is driving it. There's no question. You can't deny that. There are people out there that just simply can't afford a traditional funeral service.
Statistics from the Cremation Association of North America show that a direct cremation, which offers a basic urn and limited memorial services, averages $1,650. Adding a full memorial service, burial of the urn, marker, and so forth will increase the cost, but generally cremation is the affordable option.
To some extent, cost is an issue, but I think a large extent that's just the preference that either their loved one or the immediate family members want to take care of the disposition of their loved one.
It is more accepted now among all walks and religions. The Catholic Church used to be against cremation, and now it's acceptable. Even some of the Catholic churches here in the city of Memphis are putting in columbariums.
This casket represents one of the newest trends in the funeral industry, green burial.
Green burials are burials that help to make a small impact on the surrounding habitat. They produce very little in the way of emissions, and they conserve natural resources in as much as possible.
The green burial casket is made of biodegradable and renewable material, but even a simple cardboard box can be used. Embalming, if requested, uses eco-friendly natural chemicals. A true green burial uses no vault. The body is allowed to decompose and return naturally to the earth. 2 cemeteries in Memphis allow green burials, but Elmwood is the only cemetery that doesn't require a vault. The funeral industry may call green burial a new trend, but it dates back to the earliest days of Elmwood's history.
Because green burials have been around for thousands of years. That's what most cultures have done up until the advent of refrigeration.
Environmental concerns are the main reasons families and individuals choose green burial. But what about cost? Green burials can be less expensive, but an elaborate green funeral can cost as much or more than a traditional service. The funeral homes and cemeteries we talked with have performed only a handful of green funerals, but they agree that it's a trend that's here to stay.
I think it will grow. I don't think it will ever dominate the funeral industry.
I think that it will take probably a quarter of the business in my estimation, whereas most of your business will end in cremation, but I think a good half of that eventually will still be a traditional funeral service before the cremation.
For boomers who are truly thinking outside the box, there is an alternative to metal caskets, green burials, and cremation: whole body donation. This is the Medical Education and Research Institute, or MERI, located in Midtown Memphis. Along with the Body Donor Program at UT Health Sciences Center, the Genesis program at MERI accepts whole body donations for use in training surgeons and developing new surgical instruments and techniques.
So when they come to our facility to get hands-on training, it's like they're in an operating room. The donors are not embalmed, so they get a realistic feel just like they were going to go in to do a procedure.
There's nothing that can replace actually physically performing something and doing something yourself. You can see it on a computer, you can read about it, but there's nothing like actually doing it. And I don't know about you, but as a patient, I would prefer that my healthcare provider has really performed a surgical technique or perfected their skills another way besides on me. And I think that's what we provide here. We provide that continuing education piece and the opportunity for that person to physically touch and do.
MERI will receive about 700 donors this year and provide training for over 13,000 surgeons. But advancing the science of medicine is just one reason for boomers to choose whole body donation.
Not only can they give back and feel like they're doing something for their fellow man, but it's also a way not to impose expenses upon your children and family that are unnecessary.
MERI covers all costs for body donors, including transportation and death certificates. When the donor's stay at MERI is complete, the body is cremated at no charge and either returned to the family or interred in a local mausoleum.
I had the opportunity to have my dad here as a donor in the past year, and then my mother passed away as well in the last year, and she wanted the traditional burial. And I will tell you, it was much easier on the family to donate to MERI because they take such good care of you. And there's just so many details that you don't have to deal with. And honestly, I can feel good about my father being here, and I work here, and I know, the benefits of that, so I felt good about the things that he was able to do.
One of the last decisions any of us will make in this world is the disposition of our earthly remains. And some boomers may not be content with the earthly options. A company called Celestis specializes in memorial space flights, launching cremated remains into orbit. They anticipate launching their second memorial flight to the moon in 2015. It was Vince Lombardi, coach of the Green Bay Packers, who told us that football was like life. For 11 years, football was Curtis Weathers' life, 4 years as All-SEC at Ole Miss, and a 7-year career as a linebacker with the Cleveland Browns. But today, the Memphis native is answering a greater challenge off the field as executive director of one of the first charter schools in the state. I'd like you to meet Curtis Weathers.
This school is me in motion.
It's not hard to picture Curtis Weathers in helmet and pads. In fact, he looks like he just stepped off the football field. But he fondly remembers his playing days 30 years ago when he won the game ball as a rookie, playing his first game on Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys.
I blocked the kick and helped win the game, and that was pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting, and it was against the Cowboys, which are not my favorite team at all.
Curtis's football career ended in 1985. He had laid the groundwork for his post-football life by working as a marketing intern for a Cleveland utility company. One of his assignments was to spearhead the company's volunteer efforts with the Cleveland public school system, and that assignment would change his life.
I started, hanging out at the school all day long, 12 hours a day, and basically restructuring, the culture, helping restructure the culture and the instructional program, and the bug just bit.
The Memphis Academy of Health Sciences occupies a former church property on Chelsea Avenue in North Memphis. It opened in 2003, founded by the 100 Black Men of Memphis group, and they asked Curtis to come home to run the school. It's not a job to him, it's a ministry.
It is a ministry in the sense that I get a chance to do something that I honestly don't know if there is anything more important other than the ministry, if you will. I mean, you tell me something that's more important. I mean, I don't know that's more important to the growth and welfare of our community than educating students and children. Our kids are here on average 8.5 hours a day. We see them more awake than their parents do. We have a responsibility to teach not only, to develop their intellectual capacity, but to, develop their social capacity, their ability to interact with one another, their ability to, to understand their role in life.
MAHS started as a middle school, but is in its second year of a 4-year expansion into a full high school. The curriculum is directed toward students who are thinking about a career in health sciences and offers some hands-on learning through partnerships with local institutions like the Med.
When you think about Memphis and you think about the healthcare community here with Labana, the Med, St. Jude, I mean, we're just a robust healthcare community. It's a good area for us to be in, and it's one that I enjoy being a part of. But our school then introduces our kids to those opportunities and to those areas.
The lessons that Curtis learned as a professional athlete are applied daily in his career as an educator and are echoed in the words of his former coach, Sam Rutigliano.
He would always contrast the will to win to the will to prepare, because most people always talk about the will to win. Everybody has the will to win, he used to say. Who doesn't want to win? What makes you successful in life and what's going to make you successful on this football field is your will to prepare, your desire to every day come out and invest in your future and your performance. Try to teach the kids the same way. You got to prepare. You got to spend the time, in the weight room, if you will, in the books, studying, whatever, to get to where you want to get to. We change lives one mind at a time here every day. Why? Because we're put in a position to do that. And we have a responsibility, and it's a serious responsibility, but it is also, just, so cool to be able to do that. Nobody has that kind of opportunity but us. But we have it every day, every day.
Recently, I read an article about a hearing loss study done on over 5,000 adults, and the results surprised researchers. It seems that, in spite of the admonishments of our parents, all of that loud rock and roll music we listened to as kids didn't make us deaf. In fact, the boomer generation seems to be losing their hearing at a lower rate than either our parents or grandparents. Even so, there will still be over 50 million hearing impaired Americans by 2030. How good are your ears? And how can you protect your hearing? How prevalent is hearing loss?
Hearing loss is our number 3 health problem in the United States. Number 1 is high blood pressure, number 2 is diabetes, and 3 is hearing loss. 10% of the population have hearing loss, and that's over 33 million people have it, so it's quite common out there.
What are the symptoms?
As you get over 50 years old, you may have a decline in the high frequency range of your hearing. Your low frequencies generally stay pretty well, but it's the high frequencies that drop. You'll probably hear a lot of people say, I heard you, but I didn't understand you. I know the words were there, but the clarity wasn't there. And with that high frequency loss means you miss consonants, the P's, the T's, the S and S sounds. So a person who has a high frequency hearing loss, which a lot of people do over age 50, they're going to be going, I'm sorry, did you say lake or late? I mean, did you say 50 or 60? Particularly you'll have trouble with soft voices, female voices, little children, people who talk to you walking away from you, or anytime you get in background noise. That's probably one of the worst ones. When you get into a restaurant, you start getting lost to where you have to go ask people to repeat, you have to guess. Sometimes you get so tired of it, you just pretend. You nod your head and smile.
What causes hearing loss?
A lot of it has been noise exposure. People in their younger years, they could be in their 20s, teen years, 30s, if they've been exposed to a lot of noise, it really takes those high frequencies down. Now, some of it could be family history, but usually our most prevalent problem with hearing loss is heavy noise exposure over the years.
What is tinnitus?
It is ringing of the ears, or roaring, or katidis. Any form will be called tinnitus or tinnitus. We know that it occurs in the brain. Even though we perceive it in our ears, it's actually occurring in the brain. And from what we understand and what our theories are, is that it is the brain's ability to search for the lost input that we don't have anymore. Similar to somebody who's had a phantom limb. If their arm has been cut off, they still feel like their hand is still out here. And so it's the nerve trying to find that input it used to get and it doesn't get it, so it produces that noise. And a lot of people can mask it out, like we talked about earlier, that some people can ignore it, and some people can't go to sleep at night because it's so loud. But we have about 13 million people with tinnitus, and as of today, there's still no cure for that.
How do you determine a diagnosis?
When a patient comes in here, first we got to look at the obvious. Make sure there's no wax impactions. Make sure there's not something blocking there that could be just easily treated, removed, and they hear well again. But 95% of the people who have hearing loss have just the same run-of-the-mill hearing loss. It's just a nerve sensory neural hearing loss. Can't be fixed by medicine or surgery. At that point in time, we discuss with the patient how much hearing loss they have, what region it occurs, and the different types of hearing aids that will help fix this hearing loss for them.
How good is hearing aid technology?
We have hearing aids now that are actually computers in the ear. They actually store information for us. They let us know what kind of environment a patient has been in, how much they're spending outside in the wind, how much they've been spending in restaurants or background noise. It tells me if they're around machine noise or if they're just sitting in a quiet room. It will report this data to us. We have hearing aids that you can streamline your telephone to the hearing aid through Bluetooth technology, or streamline their television set straight to their hearing aids. We have hearing aids now that know when a telephone has come up to the ear and changes for the telephone, so that it does its own adaptability. It's able to lower background noise in a restaurant, so we can hear people who are here at the table with us, so that all this doesn't overrun what's here. So, and we're able to give people more high frequencies than before, being able to eliminate what some people used to call feedback, where their hearing aids squealed all the time, they made noise. That's a thing of the past now.
What does the future hold?
Our ear is the size of a black-eyed pea, and in that little black-eyed pea is 15,000 hair cells floating in liquid, each one responsible for different frequencies. Once you knock those out, they're gone. They don't regrow. In reptiles can grow those hair cells back in here again. We can make a snake or anything like that go deaf, and they can hear in 3 weeks from now. You do it to a mammal, whether it's a human being or a chinchilla, you damage it, it's permanent. It will not come back. And that's where a lot of our research has been too lately, is finding out how to make those hair cells grow again. If they can do it in a reptile, why can't we do it in a mammal? And once they find that key, that's wonderful.
One interesting footnote to this segment: Dr. Cox's parents were both born deaf. He learned sign language before he could speak. As you might guess, his parents' deafness was the impetus for his career choice. Dr. Cox's brother and sister and all of the family's children and grandchildren can hear. If you'd like more information on hearing loss, go to the website of the National Institute on Aging. Want more information about life after 50? Go to our website, wkno.org/besttimes, and email your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Hardaway. Good night. Funding for the Best Times is provided by Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens.